Bitcoin finally broke the trend line, that yellow lower trend line that we've been tracking. In this video, I want to break down the urgency of that move, the target to the downside, what to anticipate in the very short term. Cardano, no different really, breaking its own trend line most recently. Kind of in a free fall right now. I want to talk about the fall that it's in, but I want to, towards the last part of this video, talk about why I think we should all mentally prepare for next week, because next week could actually be quite a green week. And I know that's tough to hear. It might be tough to believe or envision amidst all the red candles that we have right now, but I want to break down exactly why I think that, and I really do think it's a very strong possibility. Let's break down the charts, what's going on here on the 6 hour to set the tone, to set some context. Check this out. This was from 9 days ago. A little fake out potentially in play before the target. Now, this is illustrated not only on the price chart that we're looking at on the 6 hour. So this was us anticipating our first target, which we most recently hit on the 6 hour. And then from there, we've really have just been sideways. You can see on the 6 hour sideways. Now the target is hit, right? That completion to the trend line is hit. Now we start analyzing the next targets, because what happened? Support, the target, it failed. And Bitcoin has most recently, and this is a 6 hour chart, has most recently fallen to the downside. So in a video, and I know some people don't like this, but I do it because it's so easy to set context in these videos and really track the story that we're tracking instead of repeating myself. Check this out. This was just from yesterday. And Bitcoin does fall. Be prepared. Maybe 5, 10% to the downside. Be prepared for a pullback. This is the story we're tracking, everybody. This is why I show those clips. And we got the fall now below that trend line. And this is what I'm watching on the very short term. It's before we even talk about targets. We know the target to the downside is kind of in that $19,000 to $20,000 range. It's another, well, from where Bitcoin is right now, it's probably 10%, 11% or so. But the very first thing I'm looking at is that 5 to 10% dip below the trend line itself. And right now we're at around 1.5%, but Bitcoin may be coming down a little bit, maybe hitting $21,000, potentially seeing a pullback. Even right now, maybe a pullback, right? So this is something I'm monitoring in the short term, because so often when we have trend lines, we get the break to the downside, and it's just the picture of a fake out, really. We get the pullback. And then it's what happens at that moment that is so key, maybe even more crucial and key than the actual breakdown itself. What happens at the pullback? Does it break back above, or is there a confirmed resistance and then we're going lower? Because if that's the case, then we might wait until that move before hitting the target. So it goes like this: a pullback, trendline resistance, falling down to the target. And this makes it so that we must maintain patience, not get wrapped up into the volatility of a move like that. Now, at the end of the day, we might just cruise on down to the $19,000, $20,000 target, but that's something we will keep an eye on. This is what it looks like on the daily chart. It's ugly, but let's note kind of the bigger picture. Let's see what's going on there. And if we look at where the target is, it is almost perfectly confluent with the 200-day moving average, which is a great area to see Bitcoin test for support. If we zoom out on the macro and we kind of bring out our Fibonacci from the swing low that we had in November to the swing high, what is right below there? It's the higher low Fibonacci. So it's this kind of scenario where Bitcoin, if it does hit the target to the downside, 200-day moving average confluent with that target range, it's that $19,000 to $20,000 area. You see sitting right at the 19,300 is the 618 of the higher low Fibonacci. The 786 is right down here around 17,600. Bitcoin moving to this area in the next, shorter term, midterm, could be the end of the bear market. And this is something we have to track, we have to see, but this could literally be the higher low that we've been waiting for out of this bear market. It could be volatile, it could be sideways. We might just get a quick wick, a big weekly wick below, come back up. It could be anything, right? But it all really does start here as we track this. We continue to track the move, and it's all happening amidst macroeconomic events. Here's the stock market in its own channel, still in its own channel, no breakout. Here's the US dollar currency index, still in its own channel. There was a breakout on the daily, but it was just a candle breakout, right? It wasn't breaking any trend line. So we're still waiting for one of those two to break in a singular direction, bullish or bearish. And in a minute, after we cover Cardano charts, I want to discuss why next week could be a very green week for Bitcoin. So right now we're kind of zoomed in on the 6 hour. We're looking at downside, but the downside could come and go very quickly, and we might be in a green type of environment. Now let's pivot over to Cardano. This is what Cardano looks like on the daily charts. To set context for Cardano, you know it. I'm going to show a really quick clip. If there is negative sentiment for the remainder of this week, if something bad happens, target to the downside out of this formation, this double top formation, right around 28 cents. So something bad happened. It's hawkish the last 2 days. Jerome Powell speaking at his testimony, and it's been hawkish, right? So this is what's spurring the technical move that we're seeing on the charts, and it's fine. It's happening, but there's just key things happening on the charts in terms of targets that we really should be mindful of. Number one, we obviously broke this the other day, the trend line. We've monitored just most recently in the video that we just, I think the clip I just showed, the double top, right? And it happened, and we have this target to the downside. Now, the question is, if Bitcoin is going to make its move, and so this would be just a crypto thing in general, meaning we're kind of in this red environment right now. If Bitcoin makes its own move back to its trend line, and ADA kind of does also a very similar thing, we might see a pullback for ADA back to a 34, 35 cent range to test, right? So this is a daily chart, but we might see a move to the upside. What happens at that area if there is a pullback to that key trend line? Now, besides that, the target to downside right around 28 cents, as we just looked at in that video. And if you look at from where ADA is right now, that's another 10 to 11% dip, which really does coincide with things like Bitcoin and Bitcoin's target to the downside. So a 10 to a 15% dip for crypto right now in play in the short term. There's no guarantee there's going to be any type of pullback, but it's just something I'm always looking for, anticipating. Now, ADA, you can see just above this rectangle. So that rectangle kind of hugging the target of 28 cents to the downside. The rectangle, as many of you know, is the swing low, end of December, to swing high. And it's just this higher low pullback area. So that 786, 27 to 28 cents, the 618 line right around 30 to 31 cents. And ADA is hovering just above that support area right now. So the question is ADA, number one, going to get the pullback? And if it doesn't, what happens to ADA when it falls into this range, starts testing not only the Fibonacci channel as a whole, but actually starts testing this target around 28 cents? This move for ADA is nothing out of the ordinary. This move for ADA is not bearish. It's a short term, you can call it a bearish move, but it's not, in my view, a bearish thing for ADA on the macro. And the same is true for Bitcoin and crypto. Now, I want to pivot and I want to talk about this potential for a green week next week. And I want to be extremely realistic. I'm not trying to throw any type of hopium. I think it is an incredibly realistic thing that we might see just play out before our eyes. And this also ties into just things like the momentum oscillator on something like ADA. I mean, look how much it has cooled down on the daily. It's approaching oversold. The meaning of that is to say, well, if it falls into oversold in the next couple of days, it is time for a potential pop out of oversold. It is time for green, right? And this happens time and time again. Stock RSI, quick movement, momentum oscillator, ready to pop out of that oversold as well. The setup for that could really be what I tweeted earlier. I said CPI reading on March 14th could exceed expectations and parabolic gains may be around the corner. Now, March 14th, CPI data is coming. That's next Tuesday. This is not long. This is like 6 days away. And if the data exceeds expectations, you might very well see the stock market and crypto go green, and quite powerfully so. And I said Truflation's reading is tracking well under 5%. I've been keeping a close eye on their data for months, and it's proven to be an insanely accurate leading indicator. And you can see it's 4.79% when I tweeted, I think. So right now it's 4.78% you see on this chart. This chart has been an incredible leading indicator. So we're going to see what happens with actual CPI data. 6.5% came out in December, January down to 6.4%, like barely any change at all. That was a very bearish thing. But if this comes in March 14th and February data comes out and it's looking really bullish, right? It comes down nicely. Crypto markets very well are just primed and ready, especially if we're going to be completing these targets to the downside. So the next 4 or 5 days could be extremely red. They could be just a 10%, 15% move to the downside to hit our targets. But from there, we might see a very nice bounce. And from a macro perspective, this could all tie into that bullish macro pivot from bear to bull that we always talk about on this channel. So I'm trying to just tie it all together, track the volatility of the story, and do so in kind of a unemotional, realistic way, because I'm here just like you, don't know what's going to happen, trying to track it the best I can and visualize every step of the way so I'm prepared emotionally, so that when things like this happen, and that is to say Bitcoin's falling through a key trend line, I'm ready for it, right? And we have been ready for these things. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I really do. Hit the subscribe if you're not a subscriber. It means a lot to me. Hit the like button for me. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.